Hey guys, tonight we begin a gentle descent into the quiet landscapes of the Stoic mind. The kind of quiet that doesn't need silence around you, just a little stillness within. Maybe your thoughts are racing. Maybe the day didn't go as planned. Or maybe it did, but your heart is still heavy with an emotion you can't quite name. That's okay. You're here now, and that's where we start. The ancient Stoics believed that peace doesn't come from controlling the world. It comes from understanding what we can and cannot control. So here's your gentle reminder tonight. You will never control the world, but you can always learn to control yourself. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to hear where and when you're listening. Share your time zone and local time in the comments. It helps this little corner of the internet feel more connected. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You walk through your thoughts as if they were a garden in the early hours, still wet from the dew of experience. Some flowers bloom easily, others hide thorns. You replay conversations, regrets, little victories, missed chances. They hang in the air like soft echoes, and in the middle of it all, one question sits quietly. What part of this did I truly control? The Stoics would nod at that question. Epictetus said that the only things truly within your power are your own beliefs, judgments, and actions. Not the weather, not traffic, not what others think, just you. That sounds simple. But when you look closer, you'll see how rarely we live it. Think about today. Did someone's comment throw you off? Did an unmet expectation shake your sense of worth? These moments sneak in quietly, and suddenly, the external world hijacks your internal peace. But now, right now, you take a breath, a slow one, and you begin to tease apart the tangled threads. The message the Stoics left us wasn't about being emotionally numb. It was about choosing where to plant your inner roots. You don't get to decide what storms roll through, but you do get to decide whether you'll let the storm live inside you. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, wrote most of his meditations while surrounded by war, illness, and betrayal. He didn't wait for peace to think clearly. He created space for clarity amid chaos. He knew the outer world may never calm, but the inner world could always choose its own weather. Can you feel it? That space between stimulus and response. That's the beginning of freedom. Of course, there's a paradox here. One of those gentle contradictions Stoicism is full of. If you accept you control very little, doesn't that make you helpless? But strangely, the opposite is true. The more you accept what's not yours to command, the more energy you reclaim to govern what is. Your mind, your breath, your character. Tonight, as you settle in, remember this. Most of what upsets you isn't the event itself. It's your judgment about the event. A delay becomes suffering only when you decide it shouldn't have happened. A comment becomes an insult only when you agree with it. You're not just a receiver of events, you're the interpreter. You are the author of your own reactions. That doesn't mean it's easy. Sometimes the line between what you control and what you don't feels blurry. Like when someone close to you is in pain. You want to fix it, but maybe all you can really offer is presence and love and steadiness. And that maybe is enough. Let's pause again. Inhale slowly through the nose. Hold. Exhale through the mouth. There's peace in realizing that not everything is your responsibility. You don't have to carry the weight of the world, just your side of the scale. The Stoics weren't detached statues of reason. They were deeply human. Their wisdom came from wrestling with real suffering, from losing children, from exile, from sickness. They didn't preach detachment, they practiced clarity. They taught themselves to say, "This is what I can change. That is what I must accept." And in that gap, a quiet mind grows. Even now, as you lie in bed, you might feel your thoughts try to wander back to the day. They'll offer you things to worry about, scripts to rerun, things you should have said. But you smile gently and let them pass, like clouds, because tonight you're not trying to control the clouds. You're learning to rest beneath them. So rest now. Not because everything is fixed, but because you've remembered what actually needs your attention, and what doesn't. The world will do what it will. But here, in this moment, the only world you need to tend is the one inside. You're still here, floating gently in the current of thought, carried by the soft rhythm of your breath. And now something stirs, an echo from earlier today, a word, a glance, a moment that sparked something sharp inside you. Someone said something they shouldn't have, and yet they did. And what bloomed inside you wasn't just annoyance. It was a storm. Frustration, then anger, then maybe shame. Your chest tightened. Your mind replayed it over and over. And now, hours later, long after the moment passed, it's still there, gnawing at the corners of your peace. The Stoics would gently ask, is it the person's words that disturb you or your judgment of them? It's not that emotions are bad, far from it. The Stoics never said don't feel. They said feel fully, but don't be ruled. Emotions are like weather, real, temporary, always shifting. But you are not the weather, you are the sky it moves through. Let that settle for a moment. You are not your anger, you are not your fear. You are the vast stillness that can hold them and choose what to do next. There's a paradox here again. Stoicism often deals in these beautiful little contradictions. Emotions are natural, but must be examined. Reactions are human, but can be delayed. You can acknowledge a storm inside you without stepping into it. Think of Musonius Rufus, an often overlooked Stoic teacher. When insulted in front of his students, he simply smiled and said, "That man is not insulting me. He's just making noise." He didn't pretend he was invincible. He just knew that reacting would give the other person power over his state of mind, and he wasn't willing to give that away. Can you see how powerful that is? You don't suppress your feelings. You observe them. You let them rise like a wave cresting, and then with gentleness you let them fall. You name them quietly in your mind. This is anger. This is disappointment. This is hurt. And with each name, the emotion loses its sharpness. It becomes known, familiar, manageable. You might recall a time today when a comment pierced deeper than it should have. Maybe someone close to you said something dismissive, or a stranger made you feel invisible. In those moments, the mind leaps to defend, to retaliate, to judge. But the Stoic habit is to pause, not because you're afraid to react, but because you're strong enough not to need to. Let's take a breath here. Inhale slowly. Let the chest rise. Exhale longer than the inhale. That breath, right there, that's the space the Stoics spoke of. The space where freedom lives. The space where you can choose not to be pulled by every emotional current that passes through your nervous system. There's something delightfully ironic about this practice. By becoming more aware of your emotions, you actually become less controlled by them. By not trying to suppress or fight them, you rob them of the power to possess you. And in that space, there's peace. Tonight, you let your emotions drift by like boats on a river. You don't have to board everyone. You don't have to explain each feeling. Just notice it, label it, let it go. You may even smile, just a little, at the absurdity of how the mind works. How one sentence from someone else can occupy so much real estate in your inner world. But you're not here to be a landlord for resentment. You're here to be the architect of peace. As you lie here, you might wonder, is it truly possible to become so calm, so unshaken? Even the Stoics weren't always calm. Marcus Aurelius struggled with his temper. Seneca wrote entire essays on anger because he knew it well. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is awareness. Awareness that lets you feel deeply and still choose wisely. So the next time anger visits, and it will, you'll meet it like an old acquaintance. You won't slam the door, but you also won't set a place at the table. You'll nod, say, "I see you, but I won't become you," and then you'll return to stillness. You'll return to this moment, this breath, this quiet. Because even if someone else sparked the storm, only you can calm it. You're lying here now, and a part of your mind is still holding on to the way someone behaved, to how something didn't go the way it was supposed to. You didn't get the answer you wanted. They didn't show up how they were supposed to, and the word you might not have used yet, but that's humming quietly underneath, is expectation. It's such a subtle visitor, so often dressed as fairness or logic, or just being reasonable. But underneath, it's a quiet thief of peace. The Stoics warned of this often, how expectation ties your emotional well-being to things you don't control. And when those things don't cooperate, as they often won't, suffering is born. You thought someone would text back. You expected a thank you for your effort. You believed the day would go smoothly. And when it didn't, the frustration wasn't from the world itself. It came from the gap between what is and what you expected it to be. There's a little humor here, isn't there? We're constantly surprised that life isn't perfect. As if life ever signed a contract promising that it would be. Think of Epictetus again. He said, "When you kiss your child good night, whisper to yourself, they are mortal." Not because he was morbid, but because the deeper your understanding of the impermanence of things, the gentler your expectations become. You begin to greet reality, not resist it. Let's bring that into your own life. Think of one thing that went wrong today. Not catastrophically wrong, just off. Late delivery, a cold response, something that didn't match the picture you painted in your mind. And now look at it clearly. Was the suffering in the event itself, or in the space between what happened and what you thought should have happened? That's where the habit begins, of noticing expectation before it hardens into resentment. You can almost imagine expectation as a tightrope. You're walking it without realizing. One wrong move, someone doesn't act right, and you fall into irritation. But what if you didn't have to walk the rope at all? What if you stood solidly on the ground, aware that people will be people, events will be events, and your peace doesn't have to be negotiated based on their behavior? Seneca once hosted a friend for dinner. The guest complained that the food was too simple. Seneca smiled and said, "Then you came not to dine but to judge." He wasn't upset, because he hadn't expected praise. He expected life to simply be life. And there's a strange kind of freedom in that. Now this isn't about becoming passive or joyless. You still show up, you still give love, you still hope. But you learn to offer those things freely, without attaching a price tag of expectation to them. Tonight, your practice is simple. You look gently at where expectation lives inside you. Not to punish yourself, but to get familiar with the places where your mind quietly demands guarantees. You might even smile at it. It's a little funny, really, how we expect perfect behavior from imperfect people. How we expect sunny days from unpredictable skies. How we expect understanding from those who may not yet understand themselves. And when you release those expectations, even a little, what's left? A soft exhale, a loosening, a return to presence. The Stoics would call this ataraxia, a kind of unshakable tranquility that comes from not needing the world to bend to your script. Can you feel it? That lightness. It's not detachment, it's acceptance. It's waking up to the realization that other people's behavior is not your responsibility to correct or predict. It's watching the world spin on its own axis, while you stay centered on yours. You lie here now, maybe recalling a moment when your expectations led you into disappointment, and you don't scold yourself for it. You just see it, and in seeing it, you dissolve it. Because peace doesn't come when life gives you everything you want. Peace comes when you stop needing life to give you anything in particular. Take a slow breath in. Hold it. Now let it go, just like the expectation you've been holding too tightly. You're not erasing hope. You're freeing yourself from the contract you unknowingly wrote with the universe. The one that said, "I'll be happy if things go my way." Instead, you write a new agreement. "I'll be at peace, no matter which way things go." And that is a life you can trust. You're here again, drifting in the gentle quiet, your body still, your mind softer than it was before, but not silent, never completely silent. There's a thought just beneath the surface, something unresolved, a question you didn't answer today, a task unfinished, a version of you that still whispers, "You should have done more." And maybe you feel it now, a low thrum of pressure, the invisible weight of always needing to be productive. The Stoics would gently place a hand on your shoulder here and ask, "Who told you you were only worthy if you were always doing something?" You pause. In this space between rest and sleep, you begin to see how deeply your identity has tangled itself in action. You chase progress like it's proof you matter. But the Stoics remind you, you are not your outcomes. You are your values. You are your character. You are your ability to remain steady, even in stillness. It's ironic, isn't it? How we exhaust ourselves chasing peace, when peace was always found in the space between tasks, in the quiet moments we treat as unproductive. Seneca once said that leisure without study is death. But he didn't mean hustle. He meant intentional reflection, the kind you're doing now, where rest becomes active in its own way because you're cultivating your inner garden. Think of your day. Did you measure it by how much you accomplished, by boxes checked, messages answered, problems solved? Or did you leave space for silence, for breath, for thought that didn't need to go anywhere? There's a quiet truth in Stoicism that often gets overlooked. The world will never give you permission to rest. You must take it. And tonight, that's what you're doing. Not out of laziness, but out of wisdom. You remember the story of Marcus Aurelius, writing his meditations in the dim light of a battlefield tent. He was emperor. He commanded armies. And yet, he made time to write reflections like, "If you seek peace, do less. And do it with more intention." That's not failure, that's mastery. Here comes a paradox again, the kind the Stoics seem to love. Doing less leads to more clarity. Resting brings deeper strength. Pausing allows wiser action. You've been taught that rest must be earned. But maybe tonight you see the flaw in that logic. You don't earn rest. You need rest in order to become the kind of person who can make wise choices tomorrow. You don't sleep because you've finished everything. You sleep so that you can carry your values forward again when the sun rises. In this way, sleep becomes stoic, not indulgent, but purposeful. So let yourself stop. Let the unfinished remain unfinished. Let the inbox be quiet. Let the version of you that needs to prove your worth through effort take a long, slow breath. Because here's a thought most people don't consider. Even your effort can become a kind of clinging, a refusal to let go, a refusal to trust the universe to spin without your hands on the wheel for a few hours. You close your eyes a little deeper now, not because you've completed everything, but because you remember the Stoic wisdom. Some things must be left undone. There's a certain discipline in that, a strange courage, to lie here in stillness and not reach for one more thing. The Stoics weren't machines. They rested. They meditated, they wrote, not as escape but as alignment. Tonight you do the same. You are not idle. You are not lazy. You are not falling behind. You are simply returning to center. Like a tree pulling its sap inward for winter. Like the sea growing calm after a tide. Stillness is not empty. It's full of wisdom. Now let that thought dissolve. Let your muscles soften. Let your jaw unclench. Let your thoughts, one by one, fold like paper cranes and drift away. There is nothing more to do. There is no one left to impress. There is only this moment, and you, breathing, healing, being. You're resting more deeply now. The weight of the day has loosened its grip. But somewhere inside there's a ripple, a quiet, persistent sensation that something is missing. That perhaps, no matter how much you try, you're not quite there yet. A nagging voice, you should be further along, more accomplished, more admired, more something. It doesn't shout, it hums subtly in the background of your thoughts. This is the ache of comparison, and it's more common than we admit. Even in silence, the mind sometimes checks, how am I doing compared to them? But the Stoics warned us long ago. Comparison is a thief not only of joy, but of truth. When you measure yourself against someone else's path, you forget your own. You abandon the soil you're growing in and gaze longingly at another's garden, without noticing that their roses came with thorns too. Marcus Aurelius, ruler of an empire, wrote reminders to himself not to envy others. He had power, status, wealth, yet he envied the simplicity of a life without it. Isn't that beautifully human? You might remember a moment today when comparison crept in. It doesn't take much. A glance at someone's photo, a scroll past someone's win. Suddenly your own day feels dull, your effort inadequate, your joy fragile. But you are not a shadow of someone else's light. You are your own flame. You burn at your own pace. Let's explore the paradox here. When you stop comparing, you actually improve. Not by rushing to catch up, but by rooting more deeply into your own purpose. Seneca spoke often of this, how the wise person is not concerned with applause, only with integrity. What you do when no one is watching, he wrote, is who you truly are. And tonight no one is watching, just you, lying here with your inner life, your quiet values, your secret fears, and your patient growth. Let go of the illusion that life is a race. There is no finish line, no judge holding up a scorecard, no audience waiting for your breakthrough. There is only the work, the living, the choosing, each day one breath, one decision at a time. It's a little funny, isn't it? How we compare the outside of others to the inside of ourselves. They're curated snapshots to our messy humanity. It's no wonder we feel behind. But the Stoics teach you to return inward, to measure yourself not by what others are doing, but by how closely you are living your values. Maybe today wasn't spectacular. Maybe you didn't get recognition, but maybe you were kind when it was hard. Maybe you were honest when it would have been easier to hide. Maybe you practiced patience when it trembled inside you. And maybe that's enough. You're not behind. You're not late. You're exactly where your path needs you to be. Even if it doesn't look like anyone else's, close your eyes a little more now. And say this softly to yourself: I am not in competition with anyone. I am allowed to grow slowly. I am allowed to be enough as I am. Even the stars don't race each other. They shine silently in their own corners of the sky, and not one of them is trying to be brighter than the next. They simply are, and so are you. Tomorrow you might feel that pull again, the urge to compare, to measure, to rank your life like a chart. But tonight you return to truth. Your value is not in your status. Your value is in your presence. Presence with your choices. Presence with your growth. Presence with your breath. And if someone else shines brightly, let them. Their light doesn't dim yours. The sky is wide enough for all of us, so breathe in deeply now. And on your next exhale, release the need to keep up. Release the idea that you're behind. Release the timeline that was never really yours. You are already on your way. And this quiet moment is part of the journey too. Your breath is quieter now and your body has softened. But the mind is clever. It always finds something to hold on to. Tonight, maybe it's holding on to a mistake. Something you said too sharply. Something you didn't say when it mattered. A missed opportunity. A moment that slipped through your fingers like water. The Stoics would not tell you to forget it. They would tell you to face it, but with gentleness. Because guilt, like smoke, only chokes you when you try to breathe through it without understanding it. Let's start here. What if mistakes weren't failures but feedback? What if your missteps were not evidence of brokenness, but of being human in motion? You see, the Stoics had no illusions about perfection. Even their greatest minds stumbled. Marcus Aurelius, who wrote so tenderly about discipline and virtue, often chastised himself in his own journal for procrastinating, for falling into irritation, for forgetting what truly mattered. There's something comforting about that, isn't there? That even the emperor, the philosopher king, had to remind himself daily not to drift from his principles. You are not broken for making mistakes. You are becoming. And becoming is a messy, imperfect process. Imagine a potter at the wheel. The clay slumps to one side, the edge wobbles, but with each turn the hands adjust, not with anger but with quiet skill. Your life is that clay. And tonight you remember, you are both the wheel and the potter. Yes, you've made choices you regret, so have we all. But here's the paradox. What if regret itself could become a form of wisdom, not a punishment, but a compass? Seneca wrote about premeditatio malorum, the practice of visualizing what could go wrong, not to create anxiety but to build inner resilience. But when things did go wrong, he didn't wallow. He analyzed. He learned. He moved forward. That's your invitation tonight. Not to forget your mistake, but to reframe it. To ask, what value did I betray in that moment? And how can I honor it more clearly next time? You don't need to punish yourself into change. Shame is not a good teacher, but clarity is. And clarity comes in stillness, like now. When you let the sting of the moment soften into understanding. Maybe you interrupted someone because you were rushing. Maybe you avoided a hard conversation. Maybe you acted from fear, not from your deeper knowing. That's okay. You are not the moment you slipped. You are the intention you return to. Breathe into that. Let the breath carry you to a place where guilt transforms, not into denial, but into resolve. You will not repeat every mistake. Some of them taught you too deeply. Some of them hurt just enough to mark the lesson into your bones. And that's the beauty of being conscious. You're not condemned to your past patterns. You're free to choose again. The Stoics didn't ask us to be flawless. They asked us to be honest, to look inward and say, this did not align with who I want to be, but now I know better. And here's the irony, one of those strange truths the Stoics would smile at. You often become wiser not in your victories, but in your stumbles. So let the mistake rest. It has already served its purpose. It got your attention. Now it can dissolve. You're not here to be perfect. You're here to be aligned. And alignment is not a one-time decision. It's a daily return, a gentle correction, a quiet apology whispered to yourself in the dark. You breathe again, and in this breath there is no condemnation, only compassion and commitment. Tomorrow you will show up a little more aware, a little more awake, not because you forced yourself to, but because you chose to. And that choice, that tiny inner shift, that is the Stoic path, not rigid, but clear, not perfect, but deeply honest. Let the day close now. Let the mistake return to the earth it came from. Let your mind unclench. Let your heart remember you are allowed to begin again, even in the quiet of night, especially here. There's something softer about your presence now. The day has faded even further behind you, but maybe there's a new tension, subtle yet familiar, like a hand tightening around your chest. Expectation, not the kind that comes from within, the kind that the world wraps around your shoulders, whispering what you should be, where you should be, how fast you should be getting there. It's heavy, isn't it? This quiet performance we carry. Even in rest, your mind rehearses. Am I living up to what's expected of me? But the Stoics would sit beside you tonight and offer you this. What if the only expectation worth keeping is your own commitment to virtue? You don't owe anyone a certain timeline. You don't need to be impressive. You just need to be aligned with truth. And here comes that paradox again. When you release the need to impress, you actually become more admirable, not because you're loud, but because you're steady, certain. Content. Epictetus, born a slave, spent his life reminding people that external roles, status, success, even social praise, are nothing more than stage props. They can be removed in a moment. But your character, that's the only thing that travels with you always, he said. Don't ask things to happen as you wish. Wish for them to happen as they do. There's freedom in that. A quiet exhale of responsibility, not for your life's outcome, but for how you meet it. So ask yourself tonight, what expectations am I carrying that don't belong to me? Maybe you inherited them from a family who saw the world through fear, from a culture obsessed with achievement, from your younger self who didn't know any better, and now maybe you're strong enough to set them down, not because you're giving up, but because you're finally giving yourself room to breathe. There's a simple metaphor the Stoics would have loved. A tree grows toward the sun, not the applause. So do you stretch, you reach, not to satisfy anyone else, but to become what you were always meant to be, quietly, naturally, without forcing. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your pace, or your choices, or your detours. Let go of the imagined audience. There is no crowd watching you from the seats of life, grading your every move. There is only you, and this path, and your breath right now. When you were younger, maybe you thought life would feel more certain by now, that you'd be there already. But there keeps moving, doesn't it? That's the trap of expectation. It builds ladders that never reach the sky. But the Stoics remind you, freedom doesn't come from climbing higher. It comes from stepping off the ladder entirely. You can still grow, still aim, still evolve, but not from pressure, from purpose. So let the pressure go now. You've carried it long enough. Inhale slowly, exhale even slower. You're not a role to be performed. You're a soul to be expressed. And this moment, this quiet drift towards sleep, is where you're most true, when you're no longer striving, when you're no longer convincing anyone of anything, when you're simply here. This is where the Stoic lives. Not in the noise of ambition, but in the hush that follows surrender. You are allowed to move at the pace of presence. You are allowed to write a story no one else expects. You are allowed to fail their standards and succeed by your own. And tomorrow, you'll rise again, not to meet a quota, but to meet yourself. That's the real triumph. To become the person your values have quietly been pointing you toward all along. Now let your breath become slower still. Let your chest rise like a wave and fall again. No expectation, no demand, only this moment, only this breath. You are enough, not because you've proven it, but because you've remembered it. There's a kind of silence that only comes once you've stopped negotiating with the day. You've put down your shields, released your pace, let go of other people's blueprints for your life. But now, what if the mind begins to drift to the future, not the hopeful parts, the unknown, the uncertain, that low hum of what if, that echoes just beneath your quiet? What if things don't work out? What if something breaks down? What if I lose what matters most? This is where anxiety likes to live, in tomorrow's shadows. But the Stoics knew that those shadows are made from our own thoughts, stretched out too far ahead of us. So tonight, you return to a practice they held close, the discipline of staying in the present. Not because the present is easy, but because it's the only place where your power lives. Marcus Aurelius wrote again and again in his journal, almost as a mantra, "Do not disturb yourself with the future. You will meet it if you must, with the same reason that arms you now." That's the insight the Stoics offer you tonight. You don't need to solve every future problem before it arrives. You just need to strengthen the mind that will meet it. You are not a prophet. You are a person. And your job is not to control what hasn't happened, but to bring your full attention to what is. Let's be honest. You've survived more than you give yourself credit for. There were times, perhaps not long ago, when you feared you wouldn't make it through. And yet here you are, breathing, still unfolding. And maybe you smile at the irony. Most of what we worry about never even happens. And the things that do happen, you handle them, don't you? Not perfectly, but steadily, with more grace than you expected, because when it's real, not imagined, you rise. That's your nature. There's an image the Stoics might use here. You are like a harbor in the storm. The waves may crash against you, the winds may howl, but the harbor holds. It doesn't prevent the storm. It prepares for it. So how do you prepare for tomorrow without fearing it? By practicing clarity now. By letting this breath become the foundation of your presence. By choosing not to be pulled away from the only moment that ever belongs to you, this one. You may still hear that whisper, but what if I lose what I love? And here comes the paradox again, one the Stoics faced with steady eyes. Everything you love is borrowed. Your relationships, your health, your time, you don't own them. You steward them. You treasure them more deeply because they are not guaranteed. Epictetus would tell his students to hold even their loved ones lightly, not to love them less, but to love them more wisely. To know that death and loss are not punishments. They are part of the natural contract. Yes, that's hard, but it also makes each moment more precious. So tonight you can release the future, not because it's safe, but because you are strong. You'll meet whatever comes with the same breath you're taking now, the same mind you're cultivating in this exact second, the same presence you're building as you lie still, slowly dissolving into sleep. Worry cannot add a single hour to your life. But presence can transform each hour into something deeper. So let the questions go now. Let the forecasts blur. Let tomorrow rest where it belongs in the future. You're not there yet, you're here. And here is enough. You're not responsible for every possible outcome. You're responsible for the intention you carry into each moment. And your intention is clear: to live well, to live honestly, to meet each day with steadiness. Tonight is not for strategy. Tonight is for trust. So breathe again, a little deeper, feel the breath arrive. Pause, then let it go just like that. This is your real work now. to meet uncertainty not with panic but with presence, to replace anticipation with attention, to remember that you have always had enough for the moment you're in. Let that be your lullaby. Let that truth rock you to sleep. Tomorrow will come, and when it does, you'll be there to greet it. You're deeper now. The edges of your thoughts have softened. But here comes another familiar visitor, quiet but persistent, regret's older sibling. The one who wears many masks, control. It hides itself in plans, in rituals, in the idea that if you just do everything right, nothing will hurt you. You've felt it, haven't you? That urge to manage every possible outcome, to secure certainty, to keep life from slipping between your fingers. But the Stoics smile at that, not unkindly, just knowingly, because they spent their whole lives wrestling with the same illusion. Tonight, let's sit with that illusion, not to judge it but to release it. Control is a tempting story, but it's a lie told in soothing tones, a lie that says, if you anticipate enough, if you try hard enough, if you care enough, you can keep the world in line. But you know better. The world doesn't bend to will. It dances to rhythms older than you. A gust of wind, a sudden goodbye, a heartbeat skipped. None of it asked for your permission. So what does a Stoic do, standing in a world that doesn't answer to their plans? They distinguish between what belongs to them and what doesn't. Epictetus taught this daily. He repeated it so often it became like a prayer. Some things are up to us, some are not. That's your compass now, not control, clarity, your thoughts, yours, your actions, yours, your values, your judgments, your choices, all yours. But the reactions of others, the weather, the economy, the past, no, those belong to the universe, not to you. Let that be freeing. Imagine you're walking through a forest. A storm begins, sudden, fierce. You can't stop the rain. But you can choose your pace. You can choose to shelter beneath a tree or continue in steady steps. You can sing through the thunder or sit in silence listening. The storm doesn't make you powerless. It makes you present. That's what the Stoics meant by freedom. Not the ability to avoid difficulty, but the power to respond with intention. So tonight, you practice that by softening your grip, by opening your hands, by remembering that the tighter you hold, the more things slip away. Marcus Aurelius, a ruler of an empire and yet a student of surrender, wrote about waking up each day expecting interruptions, people who would betray him, disappoint him, frustrate him. He wasn't being cynical, he was being realistic, and yet he kept his inner world serene. Why? Because he never confused the outside world for his own mind. He kept that sacred. So what if you did the same? What if you stopped trying to choreograph the entire dance of life and instead focused on your own next step? Here comes the paradox again. You gain influence the moment you stop needing control. You become lighter, more flexible, more responsive, because you're not reacting from fear anymore. You're acting from wisdom. Even now, in the quiet of this room, you can feel the shift. You don't need to know what tomorrow holds. You just need to know who you'll be when it comes. And who you'll be is clear, someone present, someone steady, someone soft in heart but firm in principle. That's a Stoic, not cold, not rigid, but deeply rooted. So the winds of change may bend you but never break you. Take a breath for that now. Let the air remind you you're not here to control every breath of the universe. Only this one, this inhale, this exhale. Let it go. You are enough even when life is uncertain. You are enough especially when you've stopped gripping too tightly. And if something doesn't go as planned, you'll still be here. You'll still respond with presence, with courage, with kindness. That's all life ever asks. And it's all you ever really need to offer. Now rest. You've done enough. Some nights your body is still but your mind paces. You trace conversations, moments, choices. Wondering, did I do enough? Was I kind enough? Should I have said more? Or said nothing at all? This is the weight of self-judgment. A quiet kind of suffering that rarely announces itself with drama, but instead hums softly in the background. Tonight, we bring it into the light, not to scold it but to understand it. And if you're ready to release it. The Stoics were clear on this point. You are not the sum of your mistakes. You are the sum of what you do next. Seneca, who knew regret intimately, who wrote letters of moral clarity while haunted by past ambition and complicity, did not teach from a pedestal. He taught from within the mud. He said, "The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today." But hidden inside that thought is something quieter. We can be so focused on fixing, correcting, or redeeming yesterday that we lose the one thing that's still ours, this moment. So let's come back to it. Right now, in this breath, in this stillness, you are not your past. Yes, maybe there were words you shouldn't have said, or opportunities you missed. Maybe you were too angry, too timid, too eager to please. That's okay. Stoicism is not about perfection. It's about presence. Not about never falling, but learning to fall more gently and to rise more wisely. The mind often drifts into if only. But if only is a desert with no end. Instead, the Stoics offer you a well, what now? Not what should I have done, but what will I choose now knowing what I know? That shift changes everything. It transforms guilt into clarity. It turns the mirror of judgment into a window for growth. You've come far, you've made mistakes, you've also corrected some, and others you've carried in silence, hoping they'd simply fade. Maybe they haven't, but maybe you're strong enough now to meet them head-on, not as a punishment, but as a practice. And here's another paradox the Stoics would smile at. Regret, when faced with courage, becomes wisdom. Marcus Aurelius would sit in his tent, exhausted from war, burdened by politics, and write not about his conquests but about his character. He was emperor of the world, yet spoke to himself like a student. That's what you can be tonight too, not your own judge but your own teacher. Ask gently, what can I learn from what I regret? Where did I act out of fear, out of pride, out of confusion? And can I forgive the version of me who didn't yet know better? Because you know better now. And knowing better is not something to feel guilt about. It's something to feel grateful for. So breathe into that gratitude. Not gratitude for perfection, gratitude for the capacity to grow. There's a strange beauty in the way humans learn. We stumble first, and then, if we're honest, we stumble more. But over time, through patience, reflection, and repeated effort, those stumbles begin to shape the path beneath us. That's the Stoic walk, not clean, but conscious. So you made a mistake. So did every sage, every saint, every philosopher worth listening to. What matters is that you're listening now, listening to the quiet space between thoughts, to the steady rhythm of your breath, to the reminder that you are not the voice of your past. You are the listener of your present. And tonight you listen with compassion, because there is no wisdom without self-kindness, and there is no progress without reflection, and there is no rest without surrender. You've done enough thinking. You've done enough circling old questions. Let them go now. Let them dissolve into the darkness around you. They'll be there in the morning if you need them. But for now, sleep deserves your full presence. So offer it. Offer yourself the kind of peace you would offer a friend who came to you seeking forgiveness. Because you are that friend. And you are worthy of that peace. There's something curious about nighttime. As the world outside goes still, your inner world often grows louder. Questions echo longer. Doubts stretch out like shadows on a quiet street. And one of the most persistent thoughts that creeps in under the door is this: what do others think of me? Maybe today you said something strange. Maybe someone didn't reply. Maybe you noticed a look, a pause, a shift in tone. And now you're wondering, did I offend them? Do they still like me? Am I enough, smart enough, calm enough, impressive enough? That's the quiet trap of external validation. And it's one the Stoics knew all too well. They taught a radical principle, one that seems simple but changes everything when you live by it. Other people's opinions are not your responsibility. You are responsible for your character, not your reputation. Seneca once warned, to be always concerned with what others think of you is to be a slave. And you weren't born for slavery. You were born to be free. But here's where it gets tricky. You want to be liked. You want to be respected, understood, maybe even admired. And that's not weakness. That's human nature. The Stoics didn't ask you to pretend that doesn't exist. They asked you to notice when it rules you. So let's notice together now. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine all the different versions of yourself that exist in other people's minds. The way your coworker sees you, the version your parent remembers, the impression a stranger got from a single glance. So many fragments, so many mirrors reflecting back tiny slivers of you. It's dizzying, it's impossible. And here's the truth. You will never control those reflections. Not fully, not even mostly, because people don't see you as you are. They see you as they are, through the filter of their own fears, hopes, past wounds, and personal stories. So your worth, it cannot live in their gaze, it has to live within you. Epictetus said, "If someone speaks ill of you, it's not your concern, unless what they say is true. In that case, change yourself. Otherwise, ignore it." That's real power, not arrogance. Not coldness, but clarity. So tonight, let's practice it. Take a breath and return to your own opinion. Ask yourself, am I acting according to my values? Did I speak with honesty? Was I kind even when it wasn't noticed? That's what matters. Not applause, not approval, but integrity. Here's a paradox. The more you seek external praise, the more your sense of self dissolves. But the more you live by your own principles, the more you earn your own quiet respect. And that kind of respect can't be taken from you. Even now, lying in stillness, you can feel it growing. Not loudly, but steadily. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone. You don't need to fix how people interpret your silence, your tone, your choices. You just need to be honest with yourself. And if there's something you'd like to grow in, some area where you fell short, then do it. Not because someone judged you, but because you chose to grow. That's the Stoic path, to be your own compass. To tune out the crowd, not because the crowd is always wrong, but because only you can live your life. And still, there's kindness here. This isn't about becoming distant or aloof. It's about becoming grounded, so that when someone disapproves of you, you don't crumble. And when someone praises you, you don't float away. You remain balanced, clear, whole. Like a tree rooted deep into the earth, branches swaying in the winds of opinion, but trunk unmoved. So tonight, you return to that root. You come back to the place within that doesn't need applause, doesn't fear misunderstanding, doesn't perform, it simply is. And in that stillness you find rest. You are not here to be everyone's favorite. You are here to be aligned with your own truth, and to walk that truth quietly, steadily, day by day. Let the judgments of others float away like smoke. Let the craving to be seen fade into the dark. You are already seen by the only witness that truly matters, you. Sleep in that clarity now. You're here again, close to the heart of yourself. And something unexpected rises to the surface tonight, not fear, not regret, but something softer, more subtle. Desire, the craving for something more, to arrive, to be fulfilled, to finally feel complete. Maybe it takes the form of ambition. A quiet if only you had that job, that body, that relationship, that recognition. Then you could exhale. But the Stoics offer a mirror here, and in it you might see something surprising. The more you chase fulfillment outside yourself, the further it drifts, because fulfillment is not found. It's chosen. Epictetus said, "Freedom is not achieved by satisfying desire, but by eliminating it." A sentence that sounds at first like denial, but really it's about liberation. So tonight, let's sit with that. Not to shame desire, it's part of being human, but to understand it and to see where it leads. Because not all desires are the same. Some are rooted in wisdom, the desire to grow, to serve, to learn. Others come from hunger, the endless kind. The one that whispers, "You're not enough, not yet, keep striving, keep proving, keep running." That's the desire Stoicism teaches you to unhook from. Imagine this. You're climbing a mountain. You've been told that at the summit you'll feel whole. So you strain, you sweat, you ignore the view, you press on. But when you arrive, there's no feeling of arrival, only another peak in the distance. That's the trap of craving. So what if you stopped, not stopped growing, but stopped assuming that more will make you more complete? Here's a paradox to sit with. Contentment doesn't mean settling, it means seeing. Seeing clearly what's already here, what's already within. Marcus Aurelius ruled a vast empire, and still, in his journal, he reminded himself, very little is needed to make a happy life. He wrote that while surrounded by politics, power, war, and yet he knew happiness was never out there. It was in how he met the moment, how he chose his thoughts, how he moved with grace in chaos. And you felt flashes of that too. Moments when you were fully present, making tea, watching the light shift on the wall, walking alone without hurry. In those moments you weren't chasing, you were arriving. That's what Stoic contentment feels like. Not numbness, but clarity. So here's a gentle practice. Tonight you notice your desires without obeying them. You see the part of you that wants more and you smile. You say, I see you. And I choose peace instead. Because peace is not passive, it's powerful. Peace is the choice to say, this moment is enough. Even as you keep moving. Even as you still have goals and hopes and projects. It's the balance the Stoics call apatheia, not apathy, but freedom from being ruled by desire. That doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop being captured. Imagine walking through a market. There are voices calling you, perfumes in the air, colors everywhere. You admire the beauty, but you're not pulled in every direction. You know who you are, you know what matters, you walk on steady, that's you tonight. You're in the marketplace of life, but you're not hypnotized, because you've learned something sacred. What you need is already within. The rest is decoration. Lovely, but not essential, so you let go, not of all desire, just of the belief that desire is your master. And in letting go, something strange happens. You become more grounded, more generous, more able to enjoy what is instead of mourning what isn't. That's the Stoic secret. When you stop needing more, you start experiencing more. More stillness, more presence, more joy that doesn't demand conditions. So now in this quiet, let that truth settle in. You don't have to become someone else to be at peace. You don't need more to be worthy of rest. You just need to remember, your worth isn't in your ambition. Your peace isn't in the future. It's here in this breath, in this soft dark, in this moment you've chosen to come home to yourself. Stay here a little longer, no chasing, just being. You've already arrived. You're starting to feel something soften in you. As if with each breath a little more of the day's weight slides off. Not gone, maybe, but loosened. Tonight a new thought drifts through the quiet. What does it mean to be truly free? Not freedom in the political sense. Not even freedom from obligation, but a deeper kind, inner freedom. The Stoics placed everything, yes, everything beneath that idea. Because when you're inwardly free, the world can change and you remain grounded. When you're inwardly free, someone can insult you and you don't collapse. When you're inwardly free, life doesn't need to unfold the way you plan for you to remain at peace. But that kind of freedom requires something radical. Letting go of control, not all control, just the illusion of it. You know the one. That quiet expectation that life will match your vision, that people will respond the way you hope, that things will go according to plan. It's comforting to believe that, but also exhausting, because deep down you know, life has never really followed the script. And so the Stoics ask a question that sounds strange at first. What if you stop trying to control what isn't yours to control? Not because it's easy, but because it's honest. Epictetus taught that your only true possessions are your own beliefs, judgments, and actions. Everything else, your body, your status, your health, even your loved ones, are loaned to you by fate. And fate is not cruel, it's just indifferent. So what does this mean for you lying here tonight? It means you can exhale. You don't have to micromanage the universe. You can step back from the endless chess game, trying to position every piece just right. You can return to your corner of the board and simply move your piece with clarity, with virtue, with grace. The outcome, that's not your task. It's funny, isn't it? You spend so much time trying to secure a future version of yourself, happier, safer, more admired. But the Stoics suggest a reversal. Instead of chasing the future, tend to the present. Instead of managing outcomes, manage your response. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal, not for others but for himself, that a wise person looks not to what is taken away, but to what is left. So tonight, look at what's still yours. Your breath, your reason, your choices, your inner world. That's where freedom begins, not in eliminating uncertainty, but in building strength within it. And here's a paradox for the evening. The less you try to control, the more peace you feel. You release the need to be perfect, to be understood by everyone, to always win, to always know what's next. And in that release, you become expansive. You make space for curiosity, for lightness, for surprises, because life will surprise you. It always does. A plan will fail. A friendship will shift. A new door will appear where you thought there was only wall. And you, if you've practiced letting go, you'll walk through it not with resistance but with readiness. That's Stoic resilience, not force, not rigidity, but the kind of strength that bends with the wind and doesn't break. So tonight, maybe whisper this to yourself: I am not in control of everything, and I don't need to be. Let that truth feel like a warm weight lifted off your chest. Let it make room for something better: trust. Not blind trust in fate, but earned trust in yourself, in your ability to respond well even when things don't go your way. Especially when they don't. You are not a puppet on strings, but you're also not the puppeteer of the world. You are a conscious player in a field far too complex to map. Your job is to stay honest, to stay kind, to stay present, and then let the rest unfold. Some nights that will be easy. Some nights, like tonight, it will take courage, but you have that courage. You've already shown it by choosing to slow down, by choosing to listen, by choosing to be still in a world that never stops moving. That stillness, that's your superpower. Use it. Stay here now. Let go, not out of defeat, but out of wisdom. You are free, not because life is easy, but because you no longer resist its flow. You float with it, quiet, rooted, unshaken. And slowly, gently, you drift into the kind of sleep only freedom can bring. There's something different about the quiet tonight. It's not just silence, it's space. The kind of space that invites you to sit with yourself without flinching, without needing to change anything. And that's where tonight's lesson unfolds: the strength of self-reflection. Not the harsh, punishing kind. Not a mental audit filled with shame or should-haves. But a calm, curious turning inward. A practice the Stoics did every day, especially in the evening. They didn't just go to bed. They reviewed the day gently, honestly. What did I do well? Where did I stumble? What can I try again tomorrow? It wasn't about perfection. It was about progress, awareness, integrity, because here's something we often forget. You can't grow if you don't pause to look. You can't live deliberately if you never examine what's shaping your choices. So now, under the soft blanket of night, try it. Not with judgment, with kindness. Close your eyes, take a slow breath. Let today rise up in pieces. Not the whole thing, just moments. Maybe there was a conversation that left you uneasy. Did you speak your truth or hold it in? Why? Maybe you reach for your phone again and again. Not out of need, but out of habit. What were you avoiding? Maybe you surprised yourself, offering patience where you once would have snapped. That matters too. The Stoics believed virtue wasn't something abstract. It was daily, embodied, messy even. You don't become wise in one day. You become wise by reflecting one day at a time. Think of it like cleaning a mirror. Every evening you wipe away a little fog. You see yourself a bit more clearly. Seneca called it casting up the accounts of the day. And he asked, what ailment did I heal today? What failing did I resist? In what respect am I better? Those aren't easy questions, but they're gentle anchors. They pull you back from the drift of unconscious living, because it's so easy to drift. You wake, you work, you scroll, you react, and suddenly the day is gone. But when you end your day with reflection, you take your life back inch by inch. And here's the paradox: the more honestly you see your flaws, the less they control you. Because naming something gives you power over it. You say, that was fear, that was pride, that was love, and now you can choose your next step with intention. Self-reflection isn't weakness, it's a weapon. A way to understand your inner world so you're not constantly at its mercy. You're not a puppet of your emotions. You're their witness, and slowly their guide. And it doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes the reflection is as small as, I was tired, so I snapped at a friend. Tomorrow I'll rest earlier. Sometimes it's, I said nothing when I should have spoken up. I'll try again next time. Sometimes it's just I showed up. I tried, I'm learning, that's enough. That's real. And as you reflect, you realize something else. There's nothing to run from here. Even your regrets become teachers. Even your mistakes point the way. You're not your worst moment. You're not even your best. You're the awareness behind them. And that's what Stoicism protects. That inner flame, that quiet watcher, that resilient core. You sit with yourself and you don't shrink, you don't flinch, you listen. And in listening, you soften, not into passivity but into presence, into responsibility, into grace. So tonight, before sleep takes you, ask gently, what did I learn today? What will I carry into tomorrow? Not to punish yourself, but to remember you are an active participant in your own becoming. Every small choice matters. Every effort to see clearly counts. And in this still moment, you are free to grow, not in leaps, but in quiet shifts, in softened hearts, in deeper breaths. This is the nightly return. Not to fix yourself, but to come home to yourself. That's what the Stoics practiced, and that's what you're doing now, even as your thoughts slow, even as your body grows heavier, even as you sink toward sleep. Your soul is listening and learning and lighting the way, one small truth at a time. Let that truth cradle you now. You're doing the work, and that's more than enough. And now, here you are, at the end of this journey, though not the end of your path. Lying still, wrapped in the soft hush of night, with only your breath and your being. There's nothing more to do, nothing to fix, only to remember. Tonight is a return to a truth so easily forgotten in the noise of daily life. You are already whole. Not because you're flawless, but because you are aware, growing, and still here. You've traveled through questions, held your fears up to the light, let go of what was never yours to hold, and throughout it all, something remained steady. That silent part of you, the watcher, the witness, the one who chooses how to respond. This final moment is not a climax, but a soft exhale, a gentle honoring of the work you've done simply by being present. The Stoics believed death could come at any moment. That's not morbid, it's liberating. Because when you live with the end in sight, you begin to live better. You let petty things go. You savor beauty more. You speak truth more easily. You love more deeply. And isn't that the heart of it all? Not the pursuit of perfection, but the commitment to return again and again to what matters. Let tonight be one of those returns. Not a grand vow, not a dramatic change. Just a quiet decision to meet yourself where you are, to carry one small insight forward, to make tomorrow a little lighter. And now, as the story winds down, let your inner world quiet with it. Imagine the stars outside. Not judging, not rushing. Just being. You're allowed to do the same, to rest without guilt, to sleep without tension, to wake without fear. This moment is yours, the day is over. You have done enough. Soften your jaw. Unclench your hands. Release the breath you've been holding since morning. You don't need all the answers tonight. You just need peace. And peace begins with permission. Permission to rest, to release, to return. And so we end here. But your journey doesn't. Because every morning is a new chance to practice. Every evening a new chance to reflect. And every breath an invitation to begin again. Thank you for walking this path with me. In silence, in softness, in strength. Now let go, let sleep hold you. Let your mind quiet like a pond returning to stillness. Let your breath be your anchor to the present. You're safe, you're free, you're home. The lights dim further now, thoughts slow. Images soften like watercolor fading into dusk. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to be anything more. This is the part of the night where words dissolve, where the body fully surrenders, and where the soul, quiet and calm, settles into itself. Think of the ancient Stoics, not as statues in books or dusty names in philosophy, but as fellow travelers, people who also sat in the dark with their worries, who also watched the candle burn low, and asked, have I lived today with courage, with reason, with love? And when they felt they hadn't, they didn't spiral into shame. They simply began again. That's all life ever asks. Begin again. One breath at a time, one thought at a time, So tonight, no goals, no improvement plans, only stillness, only presence, the kind that heals not through effort, but through surrender. Let sleep come. Let the body carry you to dreams like a boat across a quiet lake. No paddling needed, just trust in the water beneath you, in the peace within you, in the night all around you. Breathe in. Let go. You've earned this rest.